And we're live. Chinmay, mic check 1, 2. Can you hear me okay? Oh, I cannot hear you. I can. Oh no, we're having mic issues. We're having mic issues.
Okay, how about now? Okay, simpler solution this time. Oh man, this is the life has become after Zoom calls.
Yeah,
Like,
this is.
first 15 minutes of like, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Cool.
Oh man, here we go. All right, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. Figured it all out. Had to click a bunch of buttons to get ourselves going. So, all right, Chinmay, back. This is our third Web3 live demo series. This is like a podcast style interview, but we actually go deeper and we look at the cool stuff that you're building. Founder of PERCS. We're going to talk a little bit about your background. We're going to talk about what you're building. We're actually going to pull up a deck and we're going to get into live, sort of like actual screenshots of the product. These Web3 products are so new and so interesting. Most people have never even seen what a Web3 product looks like for brands to use to engage their customers, acquire new customers, do a bunch of cool stuff, delight their customers, as you all say. And then ding, 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 ringing in the crew. We're also joined by Dan and Peter. Dan, Peter, let's do a quick mic check. How are you?
Good. Check 1, 2, 1, 2.
I'm great. And check 1, 2, 1, 2.
Awesome. We got Dan on a train. We got Peter in the jump sky universe with me. Okay, let's get going. So just to tee it up a little bit, we're going to be talking about tool sets for brands to create their on-chain flywheels. We're going to be talking about SaaS solutions that Chinmay has built. Not only are we going to talk about the product itself, we're going to talk about the why and the strategy. So without further ado, let's get into it. Chinmay, give us a little bit of your background first, because I think that that's super important. You have, an incredibly deep experience building SaaS solutions, technology for brands to engage their customers over the last 10 years. You've also been in the blockchain and Web3 space for quite some time. So we're talking to a veteran here, a veteran on multiple levels, right? Someone with worlds of experience. I think, the knowledge that we're going to gain, and this is why I'm so excited to have the conversation, is over the next hour, 30 minutes, however long this goes. We're going to learn a lot from you, as well as, honestly, we're going to see the future of what some of these MarTech solutions look like for brands. So give us a little bit about your background. Please don't be bashful. Don't be shy. It's okay to maybe brag a little bit. I want everybody to know sort of the wonderful experience that you have.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction. Sorry about the voice a little bit. I don't know why, but like since last night having a little bit of issues, so maybe it's scratched a little bit. But hey, if you have questions, if you don't understand, happy to repeat, and I'll be taking a lot of water breaks, so that will give you time to like ask questions. So to go back further, like how I got into programming in general, right? Like for me, it was like dumb luck. Like I was literally the kid who was average in studies, average in everything. And my dad bought a computer when I was like in grade 12 or something, comparatively pretty late. But my brother was doing a little bit of programming at that time. And he shows me very first time a C++ code in terms of he enters 5 and he enters 7 and it shows up 12. Oh my God, how does the computer know that it is 5 and it is 7 when it only understands zeros and 1? And I'm like, this is very interesting. And then he shows me the code and I'm like, oh, that's actually very stupid. It's like you just ask a question and it understands it, and there is a bunch of zeros and ones that goes into it. So I instantly got it, and my brother is like, okay, now it's your turn to pick like which direction you want to go. What do you want to do? I'm like, dude, you're smarter than me. You tell me. And he's like, you should do computers. You'll do good in computers. And that's how I got into computers. And surprise, surprise, I actually was better in computers than everything else. Thank goodness. I didn't become like a mechanical engineer or electrical or civil. Otherwise, I would literally be heading my like. It takes a lot of time to see the results if you're in any of those fields. Computers, you write a few lines of code and you see the results right away. I think that was my first initial dopamine hit that was like, oh wow, this is interesting. I write something, something happens, and iterate, and something useful people want to use. In a day, you can have like hundreds of iteration if you're really good at it. So that was my first entry moment to computers. And then when I was in school, I was super fortunate that our school had tie-ups with Mozilla Foundation that if you do open source contributions, then you could get course credits. And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. So had first jumped into Mozilla Foundation code. I contributed to Thunderbird, which most people wouldn't know. I mean, I'm dating myself, but like this was like the very first email client. I built a couple of features. And after 8 to 12 months of literally head banging against the wall of like going through the code and everything, I got my code accepted in that one. And I'm like, wow, that was my second biggest dopamine moment, saying that when I received an email from a random part of the world, a person I don't know, saying that thanks for building this feature. And I'm like, that is interesting. Like, when would I that have that feeling? And I'm coming from like India, came to Canada during that phase. And yes, I'm part of like global mindset, but not as much as I'm having a conversation with someone. So that moment was like a big aha moment of like, wow, this is super awesome. Since then, I've been literally in a startup phase, enterprise phase, agency phase, did a bunch of things. Um, in the entire journey, hated the enterprise work because, again, uh, I'm addicted to dopamine, maybe you can say that, but enterprise, it takes forever to get anything done. And in startup, you can do something and you will receive the results within a matter of hours. At best, a week. And if it takes more than that, then it's not a startup. So that's how we started seeing it. And have been very fortunate that I've been working with very, very smart folks along the journey, some local heroes in the startup world. When I joined as a super like junior developer, excuse me, and from there have an opportunity to work with another super smart entrepreneur who had few exits and joined at a CTO level, and then learned, like, had a data dump. Like, literally I call like, hey, thanks for allowing me to vampire you because I learned a shit ton from you. Until then I thought business is done like completely differently, but it's just any other thing. Like, you have a problem, you solve a problem, and you make sure everyone's on the same page. So that's how it started. Back in 2015, I started my own first venture as a developer tool for developers. It bombed horribly within 12 months. Biggest reason, I thought I can build a company out of a product or a feature. Okay, guess what? No, you can't. You need to understand what really people are paying for, and developers don't pay. I don't pay. So for tools. So that was my first like biggest check in terms of you have to be realistic, you have to be pragmatic, you have to, of course, fancy dancy features and feedback and testimonials are great, but if you cannot survive a company, nothing's going to happen. So that was my first biggest moment in terms of like lesson of like, hey, make sure you have 6 months of runway in the bank. Otherwise, you don't really, then your focus should not be on the product, but like figuring out the revenue and fundraising. Uh, Soon enough, like in the same company, we establish ourselves in locally as someone who understands technology really well, microservices architecture, AI, and we started getting contracts. So suddenly, product company became an agency, and at that time, I thought I'm very unique. I'm doing something special. After talking to like few hundred founders, then they're like, oh yeah, we all do this. Is the common route that happens pretty much every single time. You start a product, it fails, but you establish yourself as a leader of something, and then people come to you for consulting. I'm like, okay, then what do you guys do? And then I'm like, you know what, instead of learning from your failures, learn from somebody else's failure. That's faster and less painful. So I started asking questions around, so what do you guys do? And they're like, look, the standard idea is agency work is great because XYZ reasons, product is great for ABC reasons. If you really want to go into product, then you have to think about how you want to run smaller experiments and all those things. So we started doing more experiments as part of the work. And then one of the experiments back in 2017 that we did around was blockchain. One of my friend comes to me and asks me, can you help me with this new language called Solidity? And I'm zero idea in terms of what blockchain is, or I knew what blockchain is in general, what Bitcoin is, but I didn't know about Ethereum at that time. So he tells me about what is Solidity, and I'm like, interesting. So I can code on blockchain, and I help him out over the weekend. Code is a code is a code, simple enough. You read documentation or the code itself, and you solve the problems. So it was not that bad. Of course, the debugging tool stack wasn't there, but we just solved the problem. And I'm like, this is interesting. First of all, I think this is the world's worst database because it's slow, it's costly, it's not going to work. But think about the use cases it enables in the context of, hey, why do you need a slow, immutable database? And money is, of course, the number one big thing. And after that, other use cases started opening up, as in like asset management. So everything around ownership, and great book by Chris Dixon about read, write, own. I wish he wrote the book at that time. It would have like short-circuited my 12 months of journey. But it was more like, it took me 12 months to realize that it's about ownership and that no one can take it away from you. So I'm like, that's very, very interesting. From there, we started doing, because we were doing an agency work, consulting work, we started doing blockchain consulting work. We were super lucky. Back in 2018, we were like building decentralized exchanges on a mobile native phone. From there, it can work. We got actually that app approved from Apple and got it live for a client. Unfortunately, client didn't have money to continue, and I learned my lesson. If the money's not coming in, you want to figure out how to exit from there afterwards. But super early, oh my God, like if I see it back, we were probably the first crypto exchange listed on an app store at that time. I didn't see it that way at that time, but that was wild. After 12, 24 months, after talking to a few people, I realized how wild it was. Soon enough, we jumped into the context of like, we had an opportunity to build a zero knowledge proof based solution mixer. We got a grant from Moloch DAO, which was like the first, I would say, successful DAO that was giving grants to build on Ethereum as an ecosystem. At the same time, another mixer, a famous one, Tornado Cash, received a grant as well to do the same thing. We roughly delivered the projects at the same time. They decided to go live. Me being in Canada, I'm like, I don't want to go to jail. And that was actually the discussion that happened in the boardroom between me and my co-founders. I'm like, I don't think we should go live. This is super sketchy. We asked some of our compliance friends, and I'm like, yeah, this is definitely sketchy. Thank goodness they gave us that idea. However, I don't think the founder of Tornado Cash should be in jail. Again, tools. If that's the case, then all the gun manufacturers should be in jail as well for the same reasons. Political debate, I'll keep it out of it for now. But point is, we were super lucky to have super early exposure to amazing tech that was going to take over the future. And at the same time, we built some wallets and all the infrastructure. So we were like quite ahead in terms of what people wanted to do and build. I would say we were 12 to 24 months ahead. And I don't think that's a good thing in most cases. Because if you're that early, it means you have to either figure out how to survive for 12 to 24 months, or you have to find a filler to keep yourself busy financially and, of course, mentally, emotionally. We got tired of running an agency back in 2020, 2021 phase, but we got lucky with some of the projects that we did. Some in crypto language, some projects mooned, and we were about to go on a couple of years of break. Let's take break from everything. I had my first child during that time as well, but there was another opportunity. A friend from Shopify comes to me and say, hey, big brands wants to do NFTs on chain and through Shopify store and sell NFTs through credit card, the entire flow. I'm like, I have a thesis on NFT roughly, like it's I don't believe in it too much, but if it is, it's going to be a loyalty play. That's how I see it for brands. Oh, sorry. Yeah, please.
Can you share who that brand was that came to y'all?
Yeah. So that brand was Budweiser. And when that happened,
Budweiser. Okay.
Budweiser and Super Plastic are pretty much like 1 month back and forth after them. They shared the name a little bit after, but like, oh my God, when that happened, I'm like,
Yeah.
I've been always looking for product opportunity to build something from an agency. This is the opportunity. Luckily, we had the team. Like we shrunk the team 5 people because keeping the core, and we are like, this is co-founders. Let's jump in.
So
And,
yeah, so like you're tinkering around with blockchain. You're actually deep in the when you say Moloch DAO, like that. For anybody that knows, is like, wow, you're super deep if you're getting a grant from Moloch DAO. And then, so you're tinkering around, you're in the hardcore culture community of Web3. And then out of nowhere, you kind of get pinged sort of from your past world and your past relationships and people kind of knowing what you're doing and that you're experimenting. And this is, I guess, 2020, 2021, NFTs are taking off, and basically Budweiser / Shopify come to you and they're like, we want to launch something. Can you remind me what it is that y'all actually, that you helped Budweiser and Shopify launch?
Yeah. So what was we wrote a custom Shopify app for Budweiser so that they can sell NFTs just like any other product on there. So they can have an inventory if they want. They can take the credit card. There is a fraud check that can happen. Once all that happen, then you take the address during the process, and boom, you directly mint / airdrop that NFT into the user wallet, and converting it into the gas fees into a dollar amount, all the shenanigans that needs to happen in order to make it happen end to end and keep it seamless. So the users would buy it just like a T-shirt. The managers or the brand managers or the inventory managers on Budweiser would use the product just like they're managing inventory for a T-shirt, for example, and everything else underneath works as magic using Shopify APIs. So that's the product that we built for. But it was less of a product at that time. It was still a custom solution. It's just that we built it in a way where our upsides and the Budweiser upsides are aligned. So there is more product philosophy involved, and the IP was built in a way where we can rebuild it for whichever direction we want to do it, plus SaaS, plus everything.
And so when you built that, you were kind of catching this. It was the hype wave of 2020 and 2021, 2022. So I might be putting words in your mouth, but you probably had a few more projects come down the pipeline, people wanting to do this. And then the whole space kind of cooled off.
Yep.
The experimentation, the shiny object phase, kind of stopped. Is that right? Is that a fair?
That's a perfect way to put it, actually. Okay. So we were, I would say, the first team out there to say NFT is a loyalty use case. And last year, early, or probably even earlier than that, a little bit, like back in 2022, we were the first team to stop using NFT as loyalty play. Yeah. Because we learned that, look, if you want to build a loyalty solution, you have to replace existing loyalty solution. Yeah. Until then, what you can sell is you can sell a tool that plugs into that existing loyalty solutions, a tool that plugs into that existing CRM solution, a tool that plugs into that existing sales solutions. But you cannot replace those places because I think industry is not ready, and because it generates like 90% of their revenue right now. So asking them to change is stupidity. So we kind of stopped using that right there. Luckily, at that time, we already raised funds. We learned from our lessons that, hey, this is going to be a long game. The bear market is coming. This was my third bear market entering. I'm like, look, I'm entering this third bear market. So let's raise funds for 4 years. And that's what I told our investors as well. It's like, look, I don't know what this company will be in next 3 years, but I guarantee that we know how to get to the pulse of the market and we know how to build. So we'll work with builders and everyone to make sure that we have that market and solution ready. And I think that's where we are right now. So we Kinda last year we did a little bit of soul searching, as in like as a company soul searching and industry soul searching. Last back in like February, March, we started researching this. All the industries, we came up with two streams of thoughts. One is a standard Web2 mentality, which is in order to have a startup, you need hacker, hipster, hustler. And I'm like, that can be applied to any industry as well. If industry has successfully involved hackers, hipsters, and hustlers, then you can map the same growth curve as a Web2 growth curve, and you can project, make some projections. Again, correct, false, don't know, but at least one framework. So we strongly believe that in 2014-15, we got hackers in. That's when people like Vitalik's and Gavin Woods came in, started building really crazy cool shit like EVMs. 2017-18, we got all the hustlers in. That's where we got all the ICOs. Like if you remember, all the people are doing the same shit. That's what it was called, ICOs, and now it's not called ICOs. But that's when the hustlers got in. And the third, in 21-22 phase, all the hipsters got in. And the most important part of hipsters, they understand what users want. Like if you talk to all the creators in the world, they are the most attuned to what their users want. Hustlers and hackers, they do because what they like. So hipsters, they are of course like they do what they like, but they need to survive, and that's why they get very, very close to their user base than hackers and hustlers. So I'm like, look, if this happens, the next growth has to be something around consumers, period. It has to be consumer based. So we started drawing out what technology needed in order to consumers to succeed. And we came up with fourfold thesis. And I think Jeff, I know you know this already, but I'll repeat those theses one more time.
No. You've told me, but I could not name off those four. That's why we're having another conversation. That's why we're recording it this time so that I can remember. But before you mention these four theses, I just want to highlight, like, you know, this conversation is these four theses are based off of 20 years of work, and more specifically, like as it relates to Web3, like for people that haven't been paying attention, but also even people like myself who have continued to work and operate and connect and experiment in the space, even though, you know, Web3 kind of like dropped off its hype cycle. It's in that sort of trough of disillusionment, and it's about to come back out. Like what we're talking about here, what we're talking about here is like, this is what people are going to be talking about in the next 1 to 3 years. And it's conversations like this from people like you that have learned and been paying close attention to the space specifically for the last 2 years. And you're developing an idea and theses and product based off of this insane focus from the last 2 years. So what are the four? Hit me.
Awesome. No, thank you. Like you're an amazing hype man. Thank you so much. So yeah, no, we basically realized that, hey, it has to be consumer. Brands are in. I know they are detracting a little bit, and they're getting distracted for somebody, sometimes rightly so, with AR, VR, Roblox, like all the universes. But brands will understand when the ownership needs to be done and the stronger relationship needs to be done. That's when they'll come back as well to the crypto world. So we came up with fourfold thesis. They're more technology driven in the mindset, because again, all things in crypto or anything like in Web2 early days started with technology enabling something, and from there use cases developing. So I'm like, what are the technological challenges that we are overcoming right now, and what thesis it can do? So from one, we were very blunt about L2s have won. Stop wasting too much time on L1s. Of course, Solana will succeed. Oh, sorry. Yep, this way. Right. Okay. Fair. I stopped hearing you.
Well, because I'm on mute, like an idiot.
All good. Tell me more.
No. L2s being. Hit me with your favorite L2s right now.
So again, like I don't have favorite L2s. That's my problem. Because I don't believe in L2s too much. Like I like them, like in the context. Like again, Avalanche is awesome. Solana is awesome. I have been a big fan of Polkadot and Gavin Wood forever. I still am a fan of Polkadot. because what you're seeing with EigenLayer and everything else, I just think what Polkadot did in terms of parachains and how parachains exist and L3 and L1, L123 kind of mentality or L012 mentality, it's exactly how Gavin Woods played out with AppChain ecosystem and everything. It's just different brands. He was early, and I know being early is not always good. This is a perfect example of that.
So thesis number one is, okay, we have moved away from L1. We had the last, like 2021 was all Ethereum based, really, and now the world has shifted to L2. So that's thesis number one.
That's thesis number one. So L2s have a high chance of winning. Oh yeah, we need to speed up. Sorry. Two, the second thesis is like, don't worry about the wallet passphrases and all those problems, because everyone was talking about wallets and passkeys and stuff. That's already resolved. I don't think that's a problem. The third one is around basically we're gonna have, if brands wants to successfully engage with consumers, they need to have some kind of wallet messaging going on. So that's why XMTP, push, and everything else. And fourth one is around consumer crypto in terms of Farcaster versus Lens versus something else. We're gonna see successful social media platforms in Web3 now. It's gonna happen. It is happening already, but
it's already happening.
Yeah. Well, this was like thesis in last like April, May. Like I'm literally talking 12 months ago. So anyways, that's where we were. Fast forward some of the logos. We can fast forward to the next one as well.
Well, no, I mean, I do want to pause here. You know, these are a few of the brands you've worked with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think super relevant. It's important for people watching to know, like, who are we talking to here? Chinmay has worked with some incredible brands and building tech and advising for some incredible brands. So the next portion of this kind of conversation, now that we've set the stage, is we're actually going to get into, you know, okay, we talked about the thesis and these driving sort of ideas. Well, what do the strategies now look like? And then what are the products that are enabling and fulfilling those strategies? So yeah, let's hot mic it. Let's go.
Okay, perfect. So this is the thesis that we came up with, like the flywheel concept, roughly back in like November. And we're like, okay, if the brand comes in, what does the user journey looks like? And I always like, again, learn lesson from somebody else's failures and success rather than coming up everything from scratch. So we come up with, we looked at the success of HubSpot, and we're like, what do they preach? And they focus on the growth hype flywheel of attract, engage, and delight. And I'm like, I think we can replicate the same model in on-chain, within on-chain audiences, with the idea of like, you can attract the new audience, reduce CAC by engaging and creating content in the Web3 social world. You can engage with them, of course, on the channels itself, but wallet messaging is opening up to be a really good way for people to reach out to brands, to reach out to the individuals and get them to action. And we already have that's how we started. The third one, Delight piece, is how we started our company, which is a Shopify app that does token gating, discounts, giveaway, events, one-off projects, all those things can happen.
So
go ahead.
Pull out the specific Web3 components in each of those, because what is interesting about this slide strategically is it's not just Web3. It's everything, right? Or it's Web2, Web3. But each of these buckets kind of has Web2 components as well as Web3 components. So what are the specific Web3 components in each one? You kind of mentioned them, but I just want to peel them out.
Absolutely. So attraction-wise, there is Web2 components are standard. You can use ads. You can use start traditional Twitter and all those like social media. But more importantly now, inside the Web3 world or the on-chain world, I'm rebranding everything I say from Web3 to on-chain because I think it's more sexier. So in the on-chain world, in not just online world, so in the on-chain world, all the social media is crazy. Everyone here already knows about the frame effect now, right? Like if you create a frame, everything goes sky the roof, the engagement, the conversion, everything else. It has died down a little bit in, like, I would say, last 2 weeks, but it's just, I think it's just a cool off period where everyone else will now go back from the learning to build. So that's the attract part. Once you attract, you need to engage with whoever you have attracted. In that case, in the Web2 world, you would like, emails is the biggest engagement piece that is ever created. Then the SMS, then phone calls, whatever you want to call, like all those engagement pieces. Equivalent of that is wallet messaging. Again, it's not full-fledged in terms of technology and the adoption yet, but a very strong feeling that it will. There has to be, it's all about the right incentive for every industry player to move along and see some use cases. Nobody wants to be the first mover, but there are already some first movers. As soon as they talk about those numbers, everyone else will fall in place. So Engage is that wallet messaging part. And Delight is, again, a standard, discounts, giveaways, and events. For Web2 world and Web3, it's pretty similar. But in Web2, it is all like your own CRM. If they bought something, you do this. In Web3 or on-chain, it's actually better because you are targeting your own audience. And when you want to open up your audience for some third-party collaborations, you don't need any technical integration. You don't need any compliance person to approve anything. You simply say, here's a smart contract, and all the Starbucks holders that basically are not Starbucks holders anymore, but anyone else who knows that this is the wallet address, they can start targeting them. Already that has happened from the Nifty Gateway, from the Starbucks Odyssey perspective. There are few campaigns already running to attract the users who doesn't have a home because Odyssey program has been canceled. You can do that easily. So this is attract, engage, and delight. This is a flywheel, and you can keep building more and more around that. For this call, I actually want to just like focus, if you want to just focus on attract, engage, and delight. We've been here for a while. People know what those are, but I think attract piece is the most sexy piece right now, especially with cookies and everything becoming a problem.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's where we're going to focus, which basically means Web3, on-chain social. I like that. The industry is moving away from the term.
Yeah, that's the new branding.
Well, I like the I like the rebrand, and one of the reasons why is because a lot of people took the term Web3 and they were like, "Oh, Web3 means AI and AR and on-chain and those three new emerging technologies," and it's like, no. Web3 is blockchain. It's crypto. You can't confuse it when you use the word on-chain. So let's move into on-chain social. So Farcaster, Frames, Warpcast being a huge component of that. And then I guess that the tech here that people are already using, brands are already using to attract customers.
Absolutely. So this slide is generally to prove that things are growing. I'm not promising that it will keep growing, but based on what I have learned in the past, that this is the right type of vibe that you need in order to keep things like a little bit of like, there's a spark here. Let me put it this way. There is a spark here. There is traction here. There is the right kind of people who behind it, and it's moving in the right direction. So this is just a graph to prove that, hey, something has happened. Farcaster actually created some revenue, like roughly $600,000. If anyone want to talk about how they generate revenue, I can definitely give you some examples. But that's actually very interesting. And some of the examples that I'm like, some of the campaigns we are running that will add more revenue in their bucket eventually. I'm like, wow, I would never think it this way, but apparently it's going to work.
Yeah.
So point is, that's good. I would like to talk about frames a lot because I think frames are, although no matter how much hyped it is right now, it's very underrepresented. It's not a social media post plus. It's actually a standardized marketing format.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So with marketing folks only creating one campaign in frames, the frame will be rendered on more places than just a social media post.
Right.
It will be loaded in wherever the consumers are. I would not be surprised if there is a billboard with frames in the future. Like it will be interactive.
Hold on. You said like an outdoor billboard that's displaying a frame.
You can have that as well. I can.
Oh, okay. So we're going New York, Times Square, the big like placement, and it's actually a frame. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
what's good about that, just to like double down on it, is Frames was launched by Farcaster, but really Frames is this surface area. And when you create a frame, yes, Farcaster Warpcast is one distribution mechanic or one distribution channel to attract potential customers or re-engage, but really the frame technology itself and the idea of frames, the distribution is going to be just in all kinds of areas, right? There's basically kind of like, if there's a screen and there's a portal that wants to pull in a frame, it can.
Exactly.
And think about that. It's almost like, oh, I publish something to the internet and then it can exist in 1,000 places at one time. That sounds incredible.
Exactly. No, I think that's exactly where it's gonna go. I'm only talking to a few folks, and when I started talking, I'm like, how do you care? Why do you care about frames? And once they talked about it, I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. So I wanna talk about one more thing in terms of frames. Think of it as, again, as I said, a standardized marketing campaign, which a marketing person can work on it once, and there are lots of places which will rent the space, digital space, whether it's billboards. Billboard is probably like an exaggerated version of it, of course.
Yeah.
But I can definitely see that as a gimmick somebody would do it, but not the use case that I can think of.
Yeah.
But lots of places where town squares in that context, digital town squares, where users go to do something, and there are spaces which can be just like rendering a frame with the context of the user information, and boom, now they can just say, hey, this frame is available for anyone to jump in and just provide your URL. We'll schedule it, and you can create a simple version of it. So think about it, ERC20, what impact, like people knew how to write smart contract for 2 years, but ERC20 dropped and everyone wanted to like do ICOs. Think about ERC 721. Smart contracts were available for 6 years now. But the moment ERC 721 dropped and 2 years of just getting matured, suddenly everyone wanted to do NFT collections, right? Like PFPs. Same movement is happening. Frames are not new. Open Graph has been talking about frame-like mentality for probably a decade, I want to say, but at least 6 years that I know of, and I can retract back to. So with that mindset, it's going to happen. Like, it's an old technology repurposed for a lot of things.
Well, and the reason, so it's old technology, and the reason it hadn't been adopted is because the primary distribution for something like frames would have been Twitter or Instagram or Facebook.
Yep.
And we all know of those platforms as walled gardens. Like they didn't want this like incredibly open and interconnected technology within their system, but also at the same time, the payment rails weren't really there to do what frames can do now. And when I say payment rails, I mean, there's something incredibly unique that crypto enables, and these tokens enable, to be able to take a frame, and we're going to talk about, we have basically on-chain or Web3 frame enabled social commerce that we're looking at right here on the slide, and we're going to break down these frames as well. But there wasn't really a money aspect a few years ago either. So, fast forward, even though Open Graph technology has been around, we're now in a place where the mentality around open social protocols platforms is something people want and they want to build. And also, you're not going to compete against Meta and Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter by building another walled garden. The only way to compete is to do the exact opposite, which is to create the most open social platform that you possibly can. I mean, laws, markets, basically business dictates that we have to do this if we're going to compete, or the startup has to do this if they're going to compete against, the big Web2. So yeah, so you kind of have these driving market forces, and the addition of money, aka crypto, now combined with this technology that's been around, and finally it's kind of found this perfect soup to bring it to life. So we're looking at here Sam, who Dawn and Dusk. So we've got some candles here, and then 90cc, G Money's fashion brand. So these are both examples of frames served in Warpcast. And just tell us what you can do here. Tell us what's cool. Tell us what's unique.
So absolutely. So I want to go a little bit back in terms of two comments you made, which is perfect, by the way. I want to add one more market force that, like I've been talking to merchants, and they're like, "Why do I come to Warpcast or anywhere else? I have to recreate all the followings and everything."
Yeah.
And some merchants, of course, want to be there because this is their audience.
Right.
There are in-betweeners, and they give me ideas on why they will explore or when they will explore. It's not why, it's more about when they will explore if they reach certain threshold. And one of them is saying that, especially with Web3 consumers or on-chain consumers, there is a tighter relationship between the brand and the on-chain consumer because that relationship is engraved on-chain. Like if you look at it, that's super helpful. So for example, when TikTok goes away, or if it goes away, their 25% of the revenue goes away, and some people are super worried because that some people, for them, is 100%. So if they're starting from scratch again, they want to start at somewhere where it doesn't happen to them again. So lots of people will be scarred if TikTok goes away because their revenue will go away with it.
Yeah.
That's where they will start looking at this kind of option. So that's one. And the second thing you're talking about in terms of what was not there before and what it is now that is enabling this, you mentioned payment. There is a bigger pool, which is global identity. Identity behind, so Frame is inserting Farcaster ID, and wallet informations are attached to Farcaster ID. Those informations are injected as part of the Frame, and now merchants can do things on top of, on based on that. That identity injection was not there before, and because of that, you can do a lot of customization. Like for now, I'll jump into the Shopify Frame and then explain how that global identity can mean something.
Yeah.
These are two frames examples where user can come in and then literally, like, this is my visual thinking. I think one day we'll have just like swiping the slides coming. But the point is, like, people can go check out the catalog here, and if they like something, they can buy them right now. Or if this is not their size, they can go into the website and then get the right size and then do the purchase. There are legal reasons on why, and technical reasons why you don't want to complete the purchase on the frame itself. It will happen with on-chain transactions and everything for the right kind of clients and right kind of products. If digital product, then things are a little bit loose. Excuse me.
You know, for me, if I may, like,
please.
feel free to rip off this too. This reminds me a lot of, like, this is just changing the game with, like, the funnel. Like when you look at e-commerce, there was typically a space where you'd attract an audience, then you had to push them to a landing page. Maybe there's a video sales letter that kind of helps convert more, and then finally you get to the buy button. Whereas now you're bringing the entire experience right into the social feed, right into the audience, so they can directly buy. And like TikTok, for example, TikTok Shop, you see them doing that. Just kind of curious, like you see these Web2 platforms like TikTok Shop. I guess Instagram and Facebook hasn't necessarily, there's Instagram Shop for sure, but the integrated experience that Frames kind of brings in comparison to what these other players, love to hear. Yeah, Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, I want to double down on that because I was around. So, if you don't know me, my background is spending hundreds of millions of dollars on Facebook and Instagram ads. So been around, spent a lot of money on the Web2 platforms advertising. And I remember when like shoppable, sort of the shoppable component was coming to Instagram. And when it was first talked about, it was like, I don't know, it was in beta for like 2 years. and then like it rolled out to a couple brands. It just like the time that it took for any kind of shoppable product catalog kind of stuff for it to roll out. It was just insane how long it took. Now compare that to Warpcast, Farcaster, and Frames. You had Farcaster being built, right? It existed. Then it launched Frames, and Frames is just kind of like surface area, right? And then you had on-chain, you had this commerce component, you had this shoppable component, you had what Dan was talking about, the marketing funnel and the customer journey shortening and changing. You basically had on-chain social commerce within weeks or within days of Frames launching. Whereas when Web 2 tried to do it and they were trying to build this soup to nuts in-house and make all the connections themselves, I'm serious, it was like years from the first time I heard it was being worked on and some beta brands were working or implementing it to when, it was more general market and general access. And the speed at which on-chain social and on-chain social commerce emerged was so fast. I mean, literally, I think it was within a day that it took.
I'm pretty sure they started coding within a day.
Yeah.
And that's the pluggability of the entire industry, right? Like if you remember Vitalik's comments around Wallet Connect versus Third Web versus all the kind of different solutions, make the smallest piece and make it pluggable, right? That's how this industry moves faster. And that's exactly what we're trying to do as well. And we haven't been able to, I think, go do it well yet. But you're absolutely right. And answering, here are some numbers, Dan, for what you're saying. The amount to introduce something to a brand and convert them to buy something if they are interested is short-circuited like that. And because of that, you can actually give bigger discounts and create a flywheel. So for example, what you would do if you would get someone in your funnel, and then you would target them with emails, and then you would give them products. If they don't buy, you give a 10% discount. If they don't buy, you give them 20% discount. Don't buy, 30% discount. And then you're spending all this management fees around this to make sure this happens. Here, if somebody likes it, give them 30% discount on the very first go. You save all the management time, and then you short circuit the introduction completely. And once you short circuit that time from knowing something about a brand to purchasing something about the brand, then do your standard LTV to increase the lifetime value of the customer. But make it as part of your CAC cost. Just get them onboarded on your brand right away, and then you can do a lot more things after that. So you are spot on there. The short circuit of the funnel is pretty crazy.
All right, let's keep it moving. So we just looked at the frame itself as we saw the example. That last slide was actually showing some case study and some results.
Yep.
And now we're actually looking at the product that you've built. We're looking at the back end for how to actually create the frame that shows up in a on-chain social feed.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, absolutely. So generally, whenever we build a product, there are two flows we have to keep in mind. First one is the consumer flow, as in what would the end consumer think? Once we have that consumer flow defined, then we go and say, how would merchants ask the information or fill in the information so they can create this desired flow that we want for the end consumers? No matter, and one biggest lesson, I'm sharing again, life lessons in this case. If the consumer flow is amazing, merchants would go to any length, by filling out even Excel sheets with you to get the desired flow at the end. Mm-hmm. So we started with that. We were hey, we want to go live fast. Let's just fill in this few Excel sheets, and then boom, we get them live manually. Soon enough, we launched this UI where users upload a bunch of screens, we call them. So we had to come up with our own nomenclature in this case, and we are trying to promote this right now so that we can have an industry-wide common sense, I would say. So frames is the whole thing that basically is one frame, and each and every image there is a screen. So that's how we are doing it. Right now, some of our website is also say slide. We're going to change that to add screen, because it's becoming more prominent that way. So for each screen, you can upload an image, you can add interactions to it, you can add buttons, you can add text boxes, all those things, and it will give you the preview at the end, and boom, it will give you the URL at the end that you copy paste and you're done. So it is becoming so easy. And because so easy, in my opinion, it's actually going to be the table stake to build anything else from there. So right now we're launching with this as is. It's in private beta. If anyone wants to get the access, just email me. I'll give you the access. But it's become super simple. Yeah, I think I talked about this enough. Like frames are going to be on all the surfaces that you can think of. Anywhere there is a user town square, whenever you know there is a bunch of users, you'll see a surface.
Can we talk about the paid ads? What are you talking about there?
No, I know. I'll need a couple of weeks to create like a solid pitch because I'm knee deep into getting this flow that I just showed loud and mass adopted. But here is my like current assumptions and vision.
Okay.
It's very, again, I'm not the smartest person in the world. I literally copy when I can. And here something to copy from is YouTube. So if you think about YouTube, what it does is it has a very similar flow. You get user in, you give them some snippets, and then while they are in the middle or early, there are some ads people look at, and then you just keep looking and entertaining them. So think of frames as an entertaining machine, something that basically entertains users, because town squares, you want to give people something that will keep bringing them back in and all the time. So you will basically have that particular entertainment screen, and suddenly you're like, oh, I think we have given you enough dopamine. You'll wait for 10 seconds before we get you somewhere else, and that frame itself will have like either email collection. And now look at this, okay? In this one, we are not asking the person to click, go somewhere, and then convert, and hoping the pixels and everything fire correctly and the attribution happens correctly.
Right.
Here, you put in the email, you click connect, the attribution is right there, the conversion is right there, and theoretically, because of on-chain, the payment is right there.
Right.
So
right.
you can revolutionize the whole thing. I think I'm getting ahead of myself in that case because I don't think all the surfaces are ready a little bit. But in my opinion, it starts with tech. And if there are right incentives, people will come and try this. I'll give you a couple of examples who, in my opinion, are hungry. I'm talking to some, but it's not number one priority for them because we haven't looked at it. But some of the wallets, some of the exchanges, some of the coin trackers, they have the town square, but they don't know how to monetize their town square in all the platforms. People with town square without understanding on how to monetize them, they'll jump in the first. And I'm only talking to 3 different types of town squares who's opening up their real estate as a frame.
Okay. When the ads part really starts to kick off, you better DM me. let me tell you how to build the product.
No, dude, you are in the list for. I need just 2 weeks to get this thing out, and I'm already like running ahead. And my team is like, dude, I need to get this thing live. Shopify has been holding our app for like last 2 weeks. Not their fault. They have had their own bureaucracy for the right reasons to make sure they don't get stuck. But anyways, point is, yes, happy to do another session with you or the whole team. Again, building with is more fun than building and telling people what to do, but that'll be fun. But one thing that we are doing for marketers right now is we are collecting use cases. We have gone through hundreds and hundreds of frames and trying to come up with use cases. We are documenting our own use cases as well that we would like to build and we can build right now or in the pipeline. We are creating 2, I would say, product velocities, which is something that I've learned that you can do, but I haven't seen anyone do that perfectly yet. But you would use the standard hub to create custom frames, but the custom frames are not really that you would build, but you would just give me the spec. I would get it built, and in the same admin panel, you'll see the analytics and everything. So it basically don't look behind the curtain kind of model that we're coming up with. But all in all, we looked at all those frames and use cases, and we are coming up with some cool way to present it. And I think chain is the best way to do it so far. first of all, you want to capture their attention. You want to
So
have
hold on. What we're talking about here is you within a frame, you've got the different screens. So the screens are the visual components that has,
Mhm,
visual component, but there's also buttons, right,
mhm,
on each screen. And so what the framework that we're running through here is this is the strategy framework for when you build a frame. What should the flow be like for each of these screens?
mhm.
And what's and knowing that the screens have a visual component as well as an interaction component of being able to click, being able to submit an email right there and feed, being able to click out to buy, things like that. So yeah, go talk about each one of these for that.
No, thanks for the context. Only one minor difference. When I'm talking about chain and each and every component, I'm not talking about 5 screens. I'm talking about 5 emotions. Um,
Okay, so like capture attention could be 2 screens within a frame,
yes.
right?
Or capture attention, hype it up, could be 1 screen.
Could be 1 screen and okay. Oh, the okay, got it.
It
Yeah.
could be, right? Like it depends on what you want to do. Again, the goal is to activate them as soon as possible, as fast as possible, but more importantly, when the time is right. So,
Yeah.
first of all, you want to capture their attention with something flashy. Something people have not used so far is GIFs. GIFs are supported inside frames, but I've only seen 2 or 3 examples of GIFs working inside a frame.
Okay.
So that's something that I think is super underutilized, but I'm pushing my clients to start experimenting with it. Then you want to hype it up. For example, you want to go into more details and say, hey, got your attention, but here's some nugget, here's more nugget, here's some more nugget. And then you're constantly getting them on a journey. And once they're at the peak of the journey, you're like, oh, wait, I'm not going to reveal the final thing for you. Why don't you follow? Why don't you subscribe? Why don't you comment? Or why don't you add your friend to the thread? Or something like that. And or why don't you buy? Why don't you give me email? Like any actions that activate them right there and then they reveal the information that you promised. Once you do that, then you go into the next phase because frame again is a journey. It's not like an image kind of an ad or image kind of information. It's like you're taking them to the journey. Because of that, my suggestion and what I've noticed so far is you can have 2 CTAs.
Mm.
You can have 2 call to actions. The first call to action is the main one, so primary and the secondary. Primary is done, and then you can at the end you can say, hey, by the way, you want to go to the website? Here's what you can do. Do you want to play the game again? Do you? Sure, let's do that. And in the second time, you're asking in the activate now, you're asking a second question. So you can have this chain going, and then it have a higher chance of working in this context. So I'll take a pause here. This is again an emotional journey. If you can have all the emotional journey done in one screen, amazing. You don't need to though. Sometimes in hype it up, you want to take 5 slides because that is like fun for people to just click, click, click. And suddenly in the habit of clicking, they are clicking the slide number 5. So for example, 10 things all the marketers should do. And then at number 5, you take a break and say, oh, by the way, make sure you follow and subscribe or blah, 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 before I can reveal the slide number 6 to you. So in any case, I can see the smile on Jeff's face.
Well,
He got it.
there was a frame that I came across, and the more ridiculous the frame, the more I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna play with this.
I'm
But
gonna
the
play with
frame, did you see Yoink? The Yoink frame?
it.
It was literally just the frame pops up and it says, it's like
Yoink?
yoink it. It's like, well, one, you just captured my attention. I'm hyped it up because like it's hyped up because like you want to do it and you want to kind of see what's next. And then the little button on the frame is just like activate now, which is press the yoink button. So like 1, 2, 3, and I hit yoink and then information reveal. And it was like, you're the 82nd thousand person to yoink. And then next steps was go see the leaderboard, go see it,
Okay.
it was literally 2 slides that did that whole thing.
That's
So
amazing. That's like that's exactly what I really like about this phase of the industry right now, because that's going to come up with some amazing use cases.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I want to build a Floppy Bird. If you remember Floppy Bird, everyone,
Yeah.
in a frame. But my team is like, that's too much time and we don't have the assets and everything. But hey, if somebody wants to build it, please take my idea, run with it. Don't even attribute me. I don't care. But Floppy Bird in a frame, I have ideas on how to actually build it as well. You just don't have time to build it.
Yeah.
That'll be cool. We have like listed 30 plus use cases as well that I think brands can use in this case. Again, anyone wants it, just send me an email.
Is this on your website, or is this like you would need to get it from you?
So we like just send me an email right now because I'm still adding a lot of images, but I'll definitely share with the jump as soon as ready.
Yeah.
And most importantly, we are dogfooding everything. So it will be email bound. And what we will do is like we'll show the first 3 use cases and say, give us your email. And then do you want the copy in an email because it's better experience than frames anyways? So we'll just send them a copy in a PDF format.
Cool.
So that's the goal. That's how we're going to play with it. All this data, all this engagement goes back into the dashboard. And personally, I don't want to hold any data at this point in time. My goal is to put the data back into where you as a marketer using the data in your own system.
So goes back to HubSpot.
Shopify, HubSpot, Klaviyo, and all the integration that we already have webhooks that people can tap into and then start creating their Zapiers if Zaps if they need to. So that's like, again, my goal is not to be data heavy. My goal is to be value heavy first. I think if you want to be data heavy first, I joke about this. I don't know if I did this on this call or not because I've been using this a lot. HubSpot didn't have a CRM as the strategy for 7 or 8 years in their game.
Oh, wow.
So think about if they couldn't pull it off, how can I pull it off? I'm not going to even try it. I don't think we're a CRM company, although the UI looks very similar because there is a demand for it. But no, we are not a CRM. If you want to take this data into your system with Zaps, be my guest.
Right. That's awesome.
So that's the goal. So yeah, that's the main one I wanted to actually cover. I'm open to ask, like, again, questions and everything, or I can just power through the rest of the 2 flywheels.
I would love to, especially this messaging component and the wallet component. I mean, you've been thinking a lot about messaging and this Web2, Web3 stack, which needs to be.
Ooh, this file is terrible, but okay, that's on my side. I didn't download correctly. My bad.
Oh, this is like really cool design. This is what we're looking. This is just like next level. Yeah.
This is the punk moment with like all the important
This is the punk moment. This is the punk moment of the show. But yeah, let's talk about this though.
Yeah. So wallet. So let's recap in terms of what we have done so far. Okay. So we started with like, what if a Web2 version of flywheel, growth flywheel, created by HubSpot, which is attract, engage, delight. If we were to replicate the same behavior for on-chain audience, which has way more power and opportunity and everything, what can that theoretically look like? We looked at the attract mode. We looked at, hey, Web2, Facebook, all those ways. The whole new ways coming in with frames. So that's the attract mode. Now let's talk about engagement. The biggest engagement piece in Web2 is emails and SMS. If I want to grab my users' attention once they leave my website, I send them an email. Hey, you haven't been here for 10 days. Hey, somebody just contacted you. Hey, blah, blah, blah. New product launch, early access. Everything happens through email. And any good or decent marketer would know that every time you send an email blast, you will have traffic on your website. And that's exactly for that half an hour to 1 hour, you want to make sure your website works absolutely fine. So point is, emails are the best. Can there be something better? And that's where Web3 on-chain comes in. As you can see, this slide was created way before I started thinking about Web 3.0 and on-chain. So I need to rebrand this slide a little bit. But think about wallet messaging as a way for brands to reach out to the wallets directly on their phones.
Because when a frame goes out, so let's take the Yoink example. So I'm sitting there, I'm yoinking this frame along with 80,000 other people, the Yoink community yoinking this frame. All those wallets, right? Now the Yoink team, the Yoink marketing team, is able to send us messages in our Coinbase wallet.
Yep.
We just went from, some sort of interaction and engagement, and then it's like, hey, Yoink 2.0 is here. Come be a part of it. So.
No, that's absolutely the case. Like once the user leaves the context, oh, there you go.
It's a build. It's a build. Damn it.
Okay, so the biggest problem is once the user leaves the premises or the town square, there is no way for anyone in the on-chain world to bring the user back to the town square. Whether
Right.
it's a DeFi, whether it's a dApp, whether it's e-commerce, whether it's Shopify, website, anything. There is no way for the users to come back because there is no way for user like brands to reach out to them. So this is where wallet messaging, in my opinion, is super, super duper powerful.
Yeah.
Where brands can start sending a message and say, hey, biggest example is on-chain summer that I think did really really good job.
Yeah.
Terrific job about it and explore. So if you want to see how we play in this game, well, it's sorry, just 1 second on the previous one.
Yeah.
So think about us as a Klaviyo or a mixed panel that brands can use to send messages, and you don't have to worry about as a brand what protocol I'm using, where it's being delivered, anything. You click a button, as long as there's a deliverability option, we deliver the message. That's it.
Cool. I love it.
Okay, and I already talked about this, but in detail. First one, you can send notification directly to the user. This is a PDF, so it is like on the right side, it's a GIF where it's like notifications are coming, and the notifications are Gmail notification comes, SMS notification come, and then this wallet messaging notification come, all in the same screen. So you can send those notifications. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like when I see all of this stuff, you've kind of got. I mean, really, these products. What I love about these products is they're built for this platform and sort of these strategies as well. You have to go up from the product and the tech and go to the strategy and say, like, well, strategically, does this even make sense for brands? And if you're a Web3 native brand, like you're saying, wallets, exchanges, protocols, yourself, this strategically, all this stuff makes a ton of sense. Your customer base and your audience is on Warpcast and Farcaster, and increasingly these other places. Dracula app, that was crazy.
That was interesting. Yeah.
We're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but that was wild. So, I guess one of the things that I want to say there is that these strategies make sense for Web3 native, on-chain native companies and organizations, which means the tech makes sense, which means all of this is going to get used. All of it's going to get battle tested. And eventually, as the rest of the world starts to have what you said an hour ago, ownership needs between the brands and their customers, and they start to turn to on-chain, these tools will be 10 times more sophisticated, 1,000 times more sophisticated. This is not the stuff that's like, oh, well, it's possible if brands and marketers want to do this stuff. Well, no, there's a whole world of brands and marketers that actually want to use this. They're just really native to Web3 right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this is what I tell everyone. If there are incentives, things will happen.
Right.
It's like align incentive. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Well, so one thing that like on the previous slide that is super important.
Yeah.
One is two things. Quick transactions. So because you're sending a message directly to the wallet, if you have like an on-chain transaction that you want to send directly as a notification, you can make that happen. That reduce significant amount of reduced friction. And when I said, remember, for surfaces, for frames, you can send frame as a message. So what you can do, and it's happening already, by the way. XMTP already supports it, and I'm already in talking to a few customers who is sending their catalog, like Shopify catalog, as a message, and the buy now happens there and then.
Okay, so it's you launch a frame in on-chain social and Warpcast, you get a bunch of engagement, and then the people that engaged with it, their wallet addresses, then you send them another frame in Coinbase wallet or all these other places where they are able to receive wallet messaging.
Exactly. So this is the engagement part. Remember, so you got them in. They've already seen your brand. They're in the brand funnel now, or maybe they converted already as well. Now you can simply send them a message as a message, a completely new, and then it renders the same box inside the SMS. Think about, you can send a whole catalog inside SMS. That's what this is.
I'm having ideas for my clients that I want to pitch.
There you go.
Let's go.
So,
all right, next slide.
Yeah, let's do that. Do that. So again, as usual, we make it super simple for everyone to do everything. At least try to, as much as possible. And if we haven't done it, 90% the technology doesn't allow it. That's why. Or two, nobody's paying for it. Either of those two. The first one is we have a JavaScript code that you can plug into any website, and you can start collecting consent to send email, or in this case, wallet messaging to those wallets, because that's super important to us. Two, sending messages, no rocket science at all. This is a simple form. You put in your contact. There are some templates available, or if you want to write your own, do it, send or schedule right there. And it shows up directly in your Coinbase wallet inside Coinbase, like in the messages section.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, this is super important stuff.
Yep.
All right, Delight. Let's close it out. Let's round it out.
So now, shifting back, attract, engage, delight. There are three things that Web2 folks do in order to get the user in that flywheel. Same thing we talked about: attract through frames, engage with wallet messaging. Too many wallets. Wallet messaging, and now we have a Shopify app, which is how we started our business, actually, the token gating one, and few other things that we build on top of it. Is there are lots of ways you can delight your customers. You can give discounts, you can do giveaways, you can throw parties, you can give exclusivity, you can give yada yada yada. We already have Google and Apple Wallet integrations. You can mint POAP, you can create trivias, all those things to keep your users engaged and make them happy, so that they can refer to you to somebody else and bring them in, and then start creating their flywheel. So this is the super faster version of that. I don't know if there is a next slide or not. Maybe there is one, maybe not.
We have. This is the last slide. Yeah.
This is just features list on that. I'll conclude, because again, this is not the cool part. This is what you have seen for the last 2 years in the industry, and that's it.
Well, I mean, it's good to close on that. This is what we saw the last 2 years. This is what was possible.
Yeah.
But it was like there was a big component missing, which was the attract and engage component. It was like we were having to use, like, you had to use Twitter and Discord.
Yes.
And a lot of these Web2 tools. And so I guess a big question, let's go big brain. Assuming on-chain social grows, which I have a thesis, I'm trying to finalize it and publish it, but I've done the math and I want to publish it. It's going to come soon. But it's the bull case for on-chain social. I'm calling it crypto social thesis. And the bull case, meaning the best case scenario that we could see, is 2.3 billion on-chain social users by 2027. That's the bull case. And I did math to get there. And okay, so let's say I'm wrong by 90%. That's 200 million. That's huge. It's still big. We're not at the billion point, but let's just say that we crossed that hurdle of a billion on-chain social. So Web2 social cannot ignore this world, right? They can't ignore that there's a billion people spending time not on their Web2 social platforms anymore. Okay, so let's assume that competition takes place.
Yeah.
Where does Frame sit? Is Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, whatever, old school legacy, are they forced to adopt frames? Like, or can they just continue to ignore this type of technology and interaction?
So I ask this question myself, like pretty much every day, probably multiple times a day, so that I can keep coming up with different ways of thinking. One, uh, I don't think any major incumbents are going to have frames this year. Uh, I'm very confident that someone like Blue Sky would have this, which is not a major incumbent, but at the same time, it's one of the major players. Oh, sorry, it's built by one of the major players. Sorry, right? I would not be surprised if that happens to Threads, but definitely not to Instagram. Threads can become the place where they can experiment, right?
That's interesting.
So that's how I see it. Experiments will be done. The biggest problem is, and I without filters, what if someone put like child pornography in a frame? There is no way for someone to put it out. There is no way for brand to put it out. Yes, you can just like make a counter argument to my counter argument is anyone can simply post like child porn in a post. How do we rectify that? Well, somebody's there doing an AI work to make sure that that's not being displayed and do it. Can we not just use the same technology to use this? Two problems. I'm just taking you to the same thought process that I go through every day. Two ways. One, currently, the way the problems are solved is that literally when a post is created in a standard world, in the online world, not on-chain world, but like on the online world, when the post is created, it cannot be variable. Like it loads. You cannot change it. In frame, first frame is the same, but after that, any frame can load. So given that loading changes, it's super dynamic, so that it's very hard for someone to make sure that there is nothing wrong in it. However, you can create some major penalties, and now we're back to the crypto world, and this is what I love about it. If you're posting something like that, any marketing team who wants to start doing frames, they have to put, let's say, $100,000, and I'm saying $100,000. I know what I'm saying. $100,000 worth of ETH that they have to stake. And once they're staking, like if something goes down or something is abused, they are slashed. Standard staking problems. And sometimes tool like ours, theoretically, don't even have to charge monthly fees. They just have to say, stake with us so that we give you permissions to post on Wordcast per se.
Wow.
And from staking, I can just like whatever money I earn is my revenue. So there are crazy amount of things you can open up. Everything is up in the air. Don't quote me on this, or it can happen, it may not happen, but opportunities are opening up because of modularity of the entire industry. So chances of it happening is higher than not happening. Like I say the same thing about Bitcoin. One of my friends asked me last year, like, what if Bitcoin goes to zero? And I'm like, look, anything can go to zero, but the probability of it touching 100K is higher than going to zero from 15K. So that's why I'm in it. And the same thing, adoption of frame by major incumbents with more guardrails is higher than frames dying. That's why I'm playing in it.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. And that concept of, okay, we're going to have let's just call it content moderation, but more than that, just like overall safety issues and moderation issues around, what's inside of a frame. And the whole idea of saying, okay, if you want to basically distribute a frame, you're going to have to stake something. And then if you do something bad, you're going to get slashed. That is so cool. I love the Web3 or the on-chain blockchain solution to like, and you could only do that. That's you couldn't have that mechanic for moderation in Web 2. I mean, maybe you could, but it's just like, even if it's technically possible, just like culturally and behaviorally, it's just like not possible.
Exactly.
So one thing that you mentioned there that I think is really smart that you said, okay, if on-chain social takes off, if and when, because I do believe it will. I'm personally just like, I'm just having more fun on Workcast, and it's just, I enjoy checking it out. It's just where I like to go hang out now. And so, okay, so it's going to take off. It's going to reach some critical mass. I do have a feeling that like we're not going to see, like Workcast is not going to have 1 billion users. Workcast, maybe best case scenario is like 10 to 50 million users. But Farcaster, what I think is going to happen is there's going to be like 1,000 to 10,000 social apps that have between 1 million and 10 million users.
Yeah.
And those 10,000 social apps that have between 1 million and 10 million users that are all built on Farcaster, that is the collection that becomes that 2.3 billion on-chain social users. We're not going to see the rise of like, oh my gosh, this new app came out of nowhere and reached 1 billion. No, it's this collection of apps that is really going to do it. And then in that case, I guess what Meta probably does to compete is, yeah, they definitely don't integrate this with Facebook and Instagram. They don't mess with that. Maybe they experiment with it on Threads. But the fourth option is they just go start building all these niche apps. That's totally possible. Like they're just like, oh, this is an ecosystem. We want to go build on it. We're going to keep our, we're going to keep our existing app experience, whatever it is, but we're going to go out. Literally, we're going to build 1,000 of these apps that are built on Farcast.
Easily.
So that's it. That's
Think about this. Sorry. I don't know if people need to, of course, drop off. Feel free. Of course, I'm just having fun. So
yeah.
Think from this perspective. I'm looking at a graph right now which said it took roughly 15 years for Facebook to reach first billion, and Twitter roughly same time. Snapchat, it reached the first billion within like 7 years or so. I'm not reading this graph correctly. Sorry. All I'm trying to say is TikTok reached like the fastest. As the time progresses, whatever the new app is, it reaches 1 billion faster and faster. So I would not be surprised if in next 5 years, if there is a Web3 or on-chain app that has a 1 billion consumers and users.
So on that note, one of the things that I was jamming on last week was ephemeral social.
Okay.
So what we loved about what Snapchat brought to the game was this ephemeral messaging, ephemeral content. It's there for 24 hours. You see it once, it goes away. With a social graph like Farcaster's ID network, and then the better, the more systemized companies can get at building just the portal like that, just like little social experience. In Farcaster's world, it's called the client. But basically what we think of as the app. I think we have we're going to sort of enter the world of ephemeral social apps where a social app springs up for maybe 24 hours around some big event or something's happening in the world, right? It's like there's a crisis that's happening and people need to coordinate. They need to do very specific actions. They need to find very specific information. They want to go there for a very specific use case for a moment in time that has a start and an end date that may only be 24 hours. And so you have an ephemeral social app that 1 billion people could use in 24 hours. And then it just goes away. It never is used again.
Wow. Okay. Like a fire festival.
Yeah. We'll see. Anyways, Chinmay, this has been awesome. I know we're going to do it again at some point. We're going to keep getting updates and chatting and seeing what you're building and then talking about crazy ideas. For everybody that joined today, Thank you for tuning in. We live stream this across YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Hopefully one day we'll be live streaming it on Warpcast as well. Maybe Chinmay will build the tech for us to do it. Maybe not. We'll see, but can't wait to do it in an on-chain way. This was the third demo in a sort of a 3-week pilot sprint. I'd love to keep doing this. Chinmay, if you know of anybody, any builders that you think should be a part of the demo series, please send them my way. Anybody that's listening or checking out, if you want to be on the demo series or know someone that should be, please let me know. Probably going to line up another 4-week sprint, and then we'll be back. But we're going to be dark for a few weeks until we line up the next crew of brilliant people to share what they're building. And until then, Chinmay, what's the website? PERCS.com?
GetPercs.com.
GetPercs.com. Go check it out. Also, thanks again, Chinmay. Thank you. Everybody else, thank you.
It was fun.
Have a great afternoon, everybody.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.